Hello, everybody, and I am here today to give you my authentic live reactions to the Astra nominations. Now, this is going to be a bit of a unique video because I thought that the Astra nominations were coming out last week. What I didn't realize was that they were only doing the Creative Arts nominations, aka the Below the Line nominations. So, last week, I did a recording of me reacting to those nominations, which I assumed would be all of the categories, only for me to realize in real time that it was just the below the line categories. But since I still have that audio, I'm going to share that audio with you now before cutting to my current live reactions to the above the line nominations. But first, let's start with what I recorded last week. So, their nominees for Best Casting are Wake Up Dead Man, One Battle After Another, Jay Kelly, Sinners, Marty Supreme, and Sentimental Value. Okay, so 6 nominations. Okay, so this is our first real indication. We have Wake Up Dead Man, which I imagine is probably not in Best Picture, but then One Battle, Jay Kelly, Sinners, Marty Supreme, and Sentimental Value, which I do think are contending. My top 5 has... Oh, they do not include Wicked. I guess their logic is, well, the casting was all done for the first movie. So is that going to be a trend that repeats? Are people going to not reward Wicked in this category because it was last year? That's going to be really interesting to see. Hamnet is not here. Marty Supreme is there. Sentimental Value, Jay Kelly. The fact that Jay Kelly is here, this is our first real indication of something that I've been thinking for a while, which is that Jay Kelly is not dead and the industry is going to love it, but we'll see what they do. So the next category up is cinematography. This is structured in a bit of a weird way, unfortunately, so I have to scroll back and forth between my predictions. Okay, for cinematography, their nominees are Train Dreams, Sinners, Frankenstein, Marty Supreme, Hamnet, One Battle After Another. So, Train Dreams is here. A big eyes on that movie. Hamnet, One Battle, Sinners, Testament of Anne Lee is not there. Frankenstein is there. So that's my 1 through 7, just leaving out Anne Lee. Interesting. Now, again, Wicked not here. Last year, they nominated that movie in every conceivable category. So is there a pushback? I mean, I've not seen Wicked for Good yet, but I've seen the reviews start to come in saying that this one is perhaps disappointing. I'm nervous going into the movie. Costume design, here's a category that Wicked's going to be in for. Frankenstein, Hedda, great shout out for Hedda, Hamnet, The Testament of Anne Lee, Wicked for Good, and Sinners. Okay, our first mention of Anne Lee, and this is actually my top 6 in the category, so you've just got to take out 1 to get your Oscar top 5. I don't think there's a terribly deep pool of contenders for costume design this year, so it does make sense that this is the top 6 that they went with. Film editing, One Battle After Another, Marty Supreme, No Other Choice, a big shout out for that film, Sinners, Wicked for Good, so that movie is included here, and Sentimental Value. Now, okay, anything big missing? Marty's there. Hamnet is not there, so maybe I should... And It Was Just an Accident is not there. Well, they're probably not going to go for as many international features, although Sentimental Value is really showing up. So I was starting to wonder, as I said in the previous video, could It Was Just an Accident overtake Sentimental Value in international feature? And so far, that does not appear to be the case, but I don't want to jump to conclusions before I've read all the nominees. Makeup and hairstyling. Okay, Frankenstein, Kiss the Spider-Woman, Sinners, Waltzing with Brando, which was eligible last year. So some weird loophole has it eligible this year. Weapons and Wicked for Good. Okay, so this is interesting now. So no Smashing Machine. And yeah, Wicked's there. Weapons was the horror movie they went with. They didn't go for 28 Years Later or Wolfman. And Kiss of the Spider-Woman. Some people thought that movie was dead, but this branch at least does seem to be making an attempt to revive it. Best Marketing Campaign, which obviously has no corresponding Oscar category. Good Fortune, Sinners, Superman, The Long Walk, Weapons, and Wicked for Good. Don't really have a stake in this race, but I think Weapons probably deserves this one. Best Original Song, Clothed by the Sun from Testament of Ann Lee, Golden from K-Pop Demon Hunters, I Lied to You from Sinners, No Place Like Home and Girl in the Bubble from Wicked for Good, and Train Dreams from Train Dreams. So basically everything except the Diane Warren song, and historically, Diane Warren does not need to get nominated for any precursors to get in at the Oscars, so nothing really shocking here. I guess they could have nominated an additional Sinner song or an additional K-Pop Demon Hunter song if they really wanted to, but they didn't. Also, no Avatar, Fire and Ash. So far, that movie hasn't shown up anywhere, so I don't know if it's screened for critics yet. We'll see by the time we get to visual effects. Production design, The Phoenician Scheme, Hedda, Hamnet, Sinners, Wicked for Good, and Frankenstein. Okay, so this is really telling me they probably did not see Avatar. I'd be really surprised if it shows up now, considering it didn't make it in production design. But Phoenician Scheme and Hedda, that's pretty surprising. Cool that it made it in here. I guess Testament of Ann Lee was also in contention, but it did not make it here. Not much to say. Score, Frankenstein, Hedda, One Battle After Another, Sinners, Hamnet, and J. Kelly. So, okay, they didn't do Wicked for Good again. They didn't do Marty Supreme, which a lot of people were convincing me was happening. Frankenstein so far is getting in everywhere, which I guess is to be expected with this particular branch. Would have been notable if it missed. And, okay, I don't think there's a ton of other stuff to talk about. Oh, Ann Lee. This is another category that Ann Lee could have gotten in. I think so far it's only gotten into costume design and song, which is not nothing, but it could be doing a lot better. Best Second Unit Director, again, not a category that corresponds. Adam Somner, One Battle After Another, Fernando Funenshine, The Accountant 2, Haiti de Jesus, The Long Walk, Katie Swain, Wake Up Dead Man, Townsend Wells, Weapons, and Wade Eastwood, Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning. How did they judge this category? How can you judge what the second unit director was like just by watching the movie? I don't really know that one. Best Sound, Frankenstein, K-Pop Demon Hunters, in for sound, nice. One Battle After Another, Sinners, The Long Walk, another good shout out, and Wicked for Good. Okay, so what's missing here? F1, is F1 really not here? Oh, wow, that is surprising. And Avatar. So at this point, okay, they clearly did not see Avatar if it's not here. But F1, I really thought that movie was going to make a case for it, but K-Pop Demon Hunters and Long Walk, I would argue K-pop a little bit more than Long Walk because it's already guaranteed to get nominated in some categories, but this is very interesting. Best Stunts, this category does not correlate yet, but it will in a few years. We have Frankenstein, How to Train Your Dragon, Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, One Battle After Another, Superman, and The Accountant 2. Nice. Stunt Coordinator, is this not the same thing? Wicked for Good, Sinners, Frankenstein, Dead Man's Wire, Begonia, Mission Impossible. Okay, not entirely sure what the difference is between these two categories, but nice shout out. Again, Wicked getting into Stunt Coordinator, but not stunts itself. Visual effects. Okay, so all year long, we've been like, what are the movies that are going to lose to Avatar? And now we have a category without Avatar. So the nominees are Black Phone 2, Frankenstein, How to Train Your Dragon, Jurassic World Rebirth, Superman, and Wicked for Good. No F1 again. Like, for some reason, that movie is not doing well at Astras. The two categories that everyone expected it to get into were visual effects and sound, with possibly some talk in other categories like cinematography and editing. Some people were even still trying to make the argument that that movie was not out of the running for Best Picture, but the Astra Midseason Awards, which do go very populist, you would expect that movie to show up somewhere, and it just didn't. So does this mean that that movie is DOA? Is it not getting into visual effects and sound at the Oscars? I don't know, but this is certainly a very concerning sign for it. And cool to see How to Train Your Dragon get in here after I predicted that that could be a visual effects nominee. Fantastic Four is not here. Yeah, okay, what else do I have? Tron Ares, I guess that could have shown up too. Yeah, Jurassic World. We'll see. Oh, and then they get into the TV categories? Wait, that's weird. So are they not going to get into the above the line categories yet? Hold on. I I did not realize this. Let me check something. And now we are back in the present day. Yeah, I'm doing some Christopher Nolan time jumping stuff. How do you like that? But even now, I am still learning information live just by clicking on this link. Apparently, they are dividing the main categories into drama and comedy musical. So, that means there's going to be very few snubs, I imagine. But at least they're covering all the main bases, so if something is missing, we know it's really serious. Okay, Best Motion Picture Drama. We have Hamnet, we have Frankenstein, It Was Just an Accident, Sentimental Value, Sinners, and Train Dreams. And for Comedy Musical, Begonia, Jay Kelly, Marty Supreme, No Other Choice, One Battle After Another, and Wicked for Good. The only thing that's missing here would be The Testament of Anne Lee in comedy, which is a bizarre thing. And of course, Avatar, but that one hasn't been seen yet. That's basically everything. So the real shocker is what is going on with Testament of Anne Lee missing, and Wicked is making it in. Okay, so now that it's been a while, now that I've seen Wicked for Good and I've seen a lot of the discourse around it, Wicked's status as a Best Picture nominee has been called into question. So it's going to be interesting going forward to see which precursors nominate it and which ones don't. I mean, Wicked made the top 6 for Comedy Musical, but that is a slot that could have feasibly gone to Anne Lee. So I'm going to keep my eyes open for that. And I'm just realizing now that the HCA Awards do something that the Golden Globes don't even do, which is they divide all 4 of the acting categories into drama and comedy. So let's start with Best Actress here. We have Jennifer Lawrence, Die My Love, Jessie Buckley, Hamnet, Julia Garner in Weapons, a bit of an out-of-box pick there, Renate Reinsve in Sentimental Value, Sydney Sweeney for Christie, that's going to be one of the few things that Sydney Sweeney gets, and Tessa Thompson for Hedda. Before I talk about potential snubs, let me look at actress. Amanda Seyfried in Testament of Anne Lee, Chase Infinity, One Battle, Cynthia Erivo, Wicked, Emma Stone, Begonia, Eva Victor for Sorry Baby, good shout out there, and Rose Byrne for If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, which is a deserving nominee, but how is If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You a comedy? That is... If the Globes nominate her in comedy, I'm going to be so confused. That is a stressful, hard-to-watch movie. That should not count as a comedy, in my opinion. So we do have Seyfried here, so that's something for Anne Lee. The only person who's really missing, arguably, is Kate Hudson for Song Sung Blue. I think this would potentially show that Hudson is out of the race. There's not much else to comment on, though. For Best Actor in a Motion Picture Drama, we have Dwayne Johnson, The Smashing Machine, Dylan O'Brien, Twinless. Okay, I haven't seen that one yet, but I thought that was a comedy, so surprised that that is in drama, all over the place there. Jeremy Allen White for Springsteen, Joel Edgerton for Train Dreams, Michael B. Jordan for Sinners, and Wagner Moura for Secret Agent. Wait, isn't Blue Moon a drama? Let me scroll down. For actor in a comedy, it's Brendan Fraser for Rental Family, George Clooney for Jay Kelly, Jesse Plemons for Begonia, Lee Byung-hun for No Other Choice, DiCaprio for One Battle, and Chalamet for Marty Supreme. So no Ethan Hawke. Wow, that is actually really surprising to me because I thought that was going to be a serious contender. This is a pretty big miss for Hawke right off the bat, and we'll see what else he can get in the running, but I really thought Sony Pictures Classics was going to give him a big push, and this is a bit of a stumbling block on his road to the potential Oscar nomination. With so many slots available, you'd think they could make room for him. Anybody else missing? I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis is missing. And yeah, Wagner Moura is there. So yeah, Hawke is the big miss. But when you have 6 nominees in both drama and comedy musical, we're not going to get a ton of big misses. Which makes the miss for Hawke all the more surprising. Okay, next up is Best Supporting Actress. So in a drama, we have Amy Madigan, Weapons, Elle Fanning, Sentimental Value, Haley Steinfeld for Sinners, Inga Lilias for Sentimental Value, Nina Haas Hedda, and Wumi Rusaku for Sinners. Okay, so 2 women for Sinners, 2 women for Sentimental Value. Hedda, that is a good shout out for Nina Haas. And for supporting actress in a comedy musical, we have Ariana Grande, we have Glenn Close for Wake Up Dead Man, we have both Gwyneth Paltrow and Odessa A'zion for Marty Supreme, and we have both Regina Hall and Tiana Taylor for One Battle. So that's basically all the names. I think the only real miss would be Emily Blunt for The Smashing Machine, but it does feel like that movie has been falling. So good shout out for Nina Haas, though. I don't really know what this is going to mean for most of these people's chances for Amy Madigan. For Steinfeld and Rusaku, it's going to be real curious to see which of the 2 of them has the better shot in supporting actress. And then for Best Supporting Actor, well, first of all, in a drama, we have David Johnson, The Long Walk. Good shout out. That's a movie that I haven't seen yet, but everyone's telling me that Johnson is amazing. And I know he's not going to get in for The Long Walk, but there are so many people shouting at his acting in this movie and Alien Romulus last year that it really feels like as soon as David Johnson does a serious dramatic film, pay attention for his awards chances. Okay, also, Delroy Lindo for Sinners, Miles Caton for Sinners, Jacob Elordi for Frankenstein, Paul Mescal for Hamnet, and Stellan Skarsgård for Sentimental Value. Okay, and then for supporting actor in a comedy musical, Adam Sandler, Jay Kelly, Del Toro, One Battle After Another, Sean Penn, One Battle, Jonathan Bailey, Wicked, Josh O'Connor, Wake Up Dead Man, and Keanu Reeves for Good Fortune. I mean, I don't really know what else I would put there, but that is a bit of a funny shout out, and there's nobody really missing unless you wanted to count Andrew Scott from Blue Moon, but I knew that if Ethan Hawke wasn't making it, then Scott would not make it either. Okay, now are we also dividing up the screenplays? No, we're not. But first, Best Director. Is this the top 6? Chloe Zhao, Hamnet, Del Toro, Frankenstein, Trier for Sentimental Value, Safdie for Marty Supreme, PTA for One Battle, and Ryan Coogler for Sinners. So the miss here is Jafar Panahi, which I do not agree with. Having seen that movie, I think that is one of the best movies of the year, and Panahi should be there. I don't know if this is going to have a serious impact on his awards chances, but this is a mention for Del Toro, which could potentially boost up his chances. Okay, let me scroll down now to Best Adapted Screenplay. We have Begonia, Frankenstein, Hamnet, No Other Choice, One Battle After Another, and Train Dreams. So the miss here is Wake Up Dead Man, which is actually a little bit surprising because that's getting into some other places. So they're not as into Wake Up Dead Man for screenplay. That's something I got to keep my eye out for. I don't know what else would get in, though. Begonia and potentially Frankenstein are the ones that I don't have in my top 5 that I may now need to watch out for. I really don't want Frankenstein to happen, so I think I am going to lean more towards Begonia. But I have been wondering about Wake Up Dead Man in this category, if we're just defaulting to having it in because the first 2 got it in. But I don't think this one has as much passion behind it. For Best Original Screenplay, we have Jay Kelly, Marty Supreme, Rental Family, a surprise nomination for Rental Family, Sentimental Value, Sinners, and Weapons. So again, the snub is It Was Just an Accident. Did that make it into picture? Yeah, It Was Just an Accident was in picture drama, so it's missing from screenplay and director is really upsetting. That is a phenomenal screenplay, and that definitely should get in at the Oscars. Hopefully should be in contention to win screenplay. Cast Ensemble, so this is not related to the Best Casting Oscar because we had that casting category earlier. We have Jay Kelly, One Battle After Another, Sentimental Value, Sinners, Wake Up Dead Man, and Wicked for Good. So Wake Up Dead Man shouted out here, but not in screenplay. Very interesting, and still don't know what to make of this category. But okay, this is ensemble, this is not casting. Voice over performance. Arden Cho for K-Pop Demon Hunters, Natalie Portman for Arco, Nick Offerman for The Life of Chuck, Scarlett Cher for Weapons, both people who do narration in live-action films, as well as Will Patton for Train Dreams, so that's cool, and Shakira for Zootopia 2. Now, first of all, Shakira had a pretty small role in the first Zootopia, so I'm surprised. I don't know if she has a really serious role in this one, but I can't imagine it's a serious acting role. Arden Cho is the nomination that makes the most sense and is probably going to win. Natalie Portman in Arco is confusing. I literally just finished watching Arco before I sat down to record this, and it's a really good movie, but Portman has a pretty small role in that film as the mother. So I'm surprised that they singled her out, I guess because she also produced the film, but still a bit of a weird choice. For animated feature, we have Arco, Demon Slayer, In Your Dreams, K-Pop Demon Hunters, Little Amelie, and Zootopia 2. So the big miss here is Elio, which is not good for me as a lover of that movie. I don't think Demon Slayer is a serious threat to get the nomination because most Oscar voters are not familiar with the franchise. In Your Dreams, though, could happen. I think that might be a bit too juvenile for them, but it is waiting in the wings for them as the number 6. Best Documentary, Cover Up, It's Never Over Jeff Buckley, My Mom Jane, Orwell 2 + 2 = 5, The Perfect Neighbor, and Zodiac Killer Project. So Perfect Neighbor continues to be the frontrunner up until the Oscar nominations. We will see what happens with that. International feature, Belen, It Was Just an Accident, No Other Choice, Sentimental Value, Surat, and The Secret Agent. So they do have 5 Neon titles plus Belen, which feels small, but I have been seeing a little bit more of a push for that movie recently. So I don't know if that's going to actually, how far that's going to go. Yeah, I don't know. I was expecting to see either Voice of Hunter-Job or President's Cake in here. Surat being sort of the number 5 is interesting. I know there's a lot of passion for that movie, but I keep telling myself, there's no way that all 5 nominees are from Neon, right? Okay, and this one I saw, and I had to stop myself from laughing. What a peculiar nomination. Best Book to Screen Adaptation, How to Train Your Dragon, Mickey 17, Superman, The Housemaid, which I don't think has even come out yet, The Life of Chuck, and The Long Walk. So these are, if you're doing like best movie based on a book, why not Hamnet? Why not One Battle? How to Train Your Dragon, is that really based on the book as much as it is just the screenplay from the original movie with a lot of copy and paste? What a weird nomination. Best Performance in a Horror or a Thriller, Alfie Williams, 28 Years Later, Alison Brie, Together, Ethan Hawke, Black Phone 2, Indy the Dog for Good Boy, Sally Hawkins, Bring Her Back, and Sophie Thatcher for Companion. It is so exciting to see Indy the Dog get a quote-unquote major nomination, and I'm very curious how many critics groups are going to have the balls, no pun intended, to nominate Indy. It's also cool to see Sophie Thatcher very, very good in that movie. Best Horror or Thriller Feature, 28 Years Later, Black Phone 2, Bring Her Back, Final Destination Bloodlines, Together, and Weapons. No Sinners, which is interesting. Sinners also isn't in the performance in a horror or thriller. And neither is Amy Madigan. I guess that they're using the logic of if it's in Best Picture, it doesn't count for this. But still, that is kind of weird logic. Best First Feature, Bob Trevino Likes It, Eleanor the Great, Good Boy, Sorry Baby, Chronology of Water, and Twinless. I do think Sorry Baby is going to sweep all of the first feature prizes because that is an impressive movie. Best Action or Sci-Fi Feature, F1, Mickey 17, Mission Impossible, Superman, Fantastic Four, and Warfare. I don't really know. I think I'm going to lean towards F1 but actually no, this was the same group that didn't nominate the film for sound or visual effects. So in that case, they're probably going to go with Superman. And finally, Best Indie Feature, Bob Trevino Likes It, Die My Love, Sorry Baby, The Chronology of Water, Twinless, and Urchin. Okay, so don't really know what to make of that. Hope that Sorry Baby wins. Hey, so I'm just realizing now I forgot to have a reaction to Best Youth Performance. I don't really have a whole lot to say here. I'm pretty sure Jacoby Jupe is going to win. It is a little surprising that neither Miles Caton for Sinners or Alfie Williams for 28 Years Later could make the top 5, but I guess because they got nominations elsewhere, they're disqualified from this. It's kind of a weird ruling system. Now that we have all the nominations, I'm not really sure what to think. There were some weird exclusions, most notably the It Was Just an Accident stuff, and also Blue Moon for actor. Testament of Ann Lee could have done much better. So, I don't know. I think this is a potential warning for a lot of movies, but it's not at all the final nail in the coffin. It's just a bit concerning. So, with that said, what did you guys think? the Critics' Choice nominations and the Golden Globes are coming up fairly soon, and those are going to be the real important precursors. But this is just a nice way to get the conversation started. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you later. Bye.